Muslim Viewpoint, a video podcast powered by the national non-profit media platform American Muslim Today. I'm your host, Rifat Malik. We're delving into a development that has the world holding its breath, the recently announced ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. After 15 months of relentless violence, this fragile truce offers a glimmer of hope. But beneath the headlines lies a tangled web of political pressure, international influence, and humanitarian urgency. We'll see how it was the right-wing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose personal interests and extremism are fundamental reasons why the violence and devastation have been protracted for the beleaguered Palestinians. The ceasefire agreement announced just days ago is set to unfold in 3 phases. According to reports, it begins with a 6-week pause in hostilities. During this time, Hamas is expected to release 33 hostages in exchange for roughly 1,000 Palestinians imprisoned, many of them unjustly in Israeli jails. Simultaneously, Israeli troops will withdraw from key areas in Gaza, including the Netzarim corridor, allowing displaced Palestinians to return to their homes, such as they are. However, Israeli forces will maintain control over the Philadelphia corridor along the Egypt-Gaza border until all hostages are released. While the framework may sound promising, it's crucial to ask, will this ceasefire hold, or is it just a temporary pause in an ongoing cycle of violence? Former Israeli negotiator and president of the U.S. Middle East Project, Daniel Levy, has offered a scathing critique of the situation. We've been told throughout that the problem is Hamas. That's the reason there's no deal. But every Israeli journalist who's been serious have acknowledged that Netanyahu worked hardest to prevent this deal and has changed under the threat of a president who's perceived to be someone who can act like the leader of a superpower, who Netanyahu can't wrap around his little finger like with Biden. Levy also shed light on the role of American leverage in the conflict, saying, "The only actor that can bring external pressure in is the US, because the US offers the weapons, the arms, the political, diplomatic, economic cover. Israel couldn't do this for a day without the US, and the Biden administration refused to use that leverage." While the text of the deal hasn't been released yet, the framework appears exactly the same as what President Joe Biden proposed in May, a stage agreement whereby the war poses for 6 weeks. Some hostages in specific categories are exchanged for Palestinian prisoners, Israeli troops gradually withdraw from Gaza, and negotiations on a permanent end to the war commence. Ultimately, it's far too early to know who deserves credit for this ceasefire, but there's no doubt that the presence of Donald Trump has created an impact. The president-elect, immediately after the agreement was clinched, took to social media to declare victory. This epic ceasefire agreement could have only happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration will seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. According to the New York Times, Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, helped to put pressure on Netanyahu earlier in the week, which may have urged the Israeli premier to approve the compromises necessary to end the war. Netanyahu's office posted that he had thanked Trump for his assistance in brokering the release of Israeli hostages. As we record this episode, the war has left devastating scars. Since the conflict began on October the 7th, 2023, over 50,000 Palestinians, many of them women and children, have been slaughtered, according to the local health authority and humanitarian agencies, many of whom have called the situation a genocide. The UN has initiated war crimes proceedings against Netanyahu. On the Israeli side, 405 soldiers have died. Even after the ceasefire, however, Israeli airstrikes have claimed 73 more Palestinian lives and injured over 230 people in Gaza. The question lingers, can a ceasefire truly heal these wounds, or does it risk becoming another chapter in a cycle of destruction? There's no doubt the ceasefire has exposed deep divisions within Israel's political landscape. Prime Minister Netanyahu faces significant pressure from his far-right coalition, many of whom oppose any deal with Hamas. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has already denounced the agreement, while Bezalel Smotrich, another far-right ally, demands assurances that Israel can resume the war if necessary. Netanyahu's political survival will hinge on this deal. As Daniel Levy pointed out, this is not just a question of policy, but also of power. Netanyahu worked hardest to prevent this deal. While Secretary of State Antony Blinken has described the ceasefire as a moment of historic possibility, its success will require tremendous political courage and compromise. Meanwhile, demonstrations against the deal have emerged in Israel, with some families of fallen soldiers expressing their opposition. Rows of mock coffins draped in Israeli flags serve as a chilling reminder of the tensions bubbling beneath the surface and the forces working against the ceasefire. But most of all, let's remember the human cost of this conflict and the resilience of the Palestinian people. The ceasefire is a step, but it is not the destination. Justice, equality, and peace remains the ultimate goals. That means an end to the decades of brutal occupation and the absolute right to self-determination for the Palestinian people. That's it for now. Thank you for joining me on Muslim Viewpoint. If you value our public service journalism, please support American Muslim Today, a 501c3 nonprofit, by following us on social media at American Muslim Today or donating at AmericanMuslimToday.com. And before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, I'm Rifat Malik.